Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're joined by a very important guest. Very glad to have on Senator Roy Blunt, the senior senator now from the great state of Missouri. Welcome to the show.
Not the senior senator for very long, but I'm getting used to it, and great to be with you, Scott.
Let's talk about something that is a big topic in this state and something you've worked on for a long time, and that's infrastructure. Something that Missourians, whether you're in rural Missouri or urban Missouri, you got to care about how you get transported around. What can you do at the federal level that impacts the state now?
Well, I think, first of all, I think location is our biggest single advantage. And Missourians that want to think about job opportunities and economic opportunities need to figure out how we take the most advantage of that. The interstate highways come together, the rivers come together, the railroad systems come together here. How do we integrate all of that? And how do we create a future of opportunity? If you're going to make something in America today, the first two questions you'd ask yourself, and a lot of people do want to bring those manufacturing jobs back to this country, would be, can you pay the utility bill, and does the transportation system work for what we want to do? And if you can't answer, if both of those questions aren't yes, we can pay the utility bill and do what we want to do, yes, the transportation, only then do you get to the third question, which is workforce and ability to prepare, ability to do that. So transportation, really important to us. It matters to the whole country. It matters more to us. And we need to take it really seriously as we look at the manufacturing opportunities, the world food need opportunities that are right out there. These are natural markets for us. But transportation and keeping our utility bills at a reasonable rate are two of the entry-level cards you have to be able to play.
Let's talk about something that goes back. Your family even has a history in agriculture in the state of Missouri. It's ag policy right now at the federal level is a little tumultuous. What's the state of affairs?
Well, trade policy is tumultuous as it relates to agriculture, and opening markets are the right thing for us to do. Getting markets back when you lose them aren't as easy as it would be to get them to start with, whether it's the grain markets, the soybeans, the corn, the other things that we have made such success exporting, or the livestock, the chicken, the pork, the beef. Opening up new markets really matters there. So that's one of the reasons that I'm always looking to see how can we find more opportunities to sell things rather than create barriers. But hopefully we're going to begin to get to the conclusion of some of these trade agreements, and hopefully we'll see that the President's strategy was exactly the right strategy. I've had some concerns about it because I've never been a big tariff guy, but maybe we'll come to some conclusions here pretty soon. No doubt the Chinese are not trading it fairly. Also no doubt, though, that we really benefit from particularly the Mexico and Canada market that's been established, and it's critically important to us. Missouri would be the 5th most negatively impacted state in real dollars if NAFTA just went away, for instance. So we have a lot to lose. We also have a lot to gain if we can get the new agreement done. And remember, Scott, world food demand is about to expand exponentially. It's going to be twice as big 50 years in 2050 as it is right now. World food need will double by 2060. We think the demand will double quicker than that, but I don't think there's ever been a bigger economic driver, nor is there a single state that's better positioned than we are to take advantage of this unbelievably big daily economic activity all over the world of just people feeding themselves and having food choices.
When I was down in the county you were born in, Webster County, they were very proud to claim you. They were excited about one thing more than anything else that was going on in politics, and that was rural broadband. The legislature is trying to make a way for the co-ops and other companies to bring, I think that is when we built the highway in Butler County down a 4-lane. The growth wasn't in manufacturing. It was in people that could live a rural way of life and work from their home because they had quality internet. What is the status of that, and when can Missourians start to see a way to live in places like Webster County, but be able to have a high-level job?
Right. I was just at a meeting with the Secretary of Labor, who we had here for a couple of days, and this came up talking. This happened to be looking at Northeast Missouri jobs, but looking at jobs where the jobs that are currently there are a long way from people that to have to drive to get to those jobs. Rural broadband is part of that. We're behind in our state, but both the legislature here and the congressional delegation in Washington has made it a big priority to get caught up. So you do have the opportunity to live where you want to live. You also have the opportunity in a highly competitive marketplace to know as quick as anybody else does what the prices are out there, to know if back to agriculture, if you're in that field and you're not wasting your input cost, you know exactly where your piece of equipment is and how much fertilizer or whatever you need right there, as opposed to what you need 100 yards down the road. And that's what agriculture is going to be like in the future. But the ability to live where you want to live, to take advantage of communities and social infrastructure and schools and water systems and other things already there, rural broadband can make a big difference there. In addition to the quality of life, it makes a big difference, frankly, in whether the kid who lives 2 blocks from school, who has broadband, has the same nighttime advantage as the kid who lives 2 miles from school or 20 miles from school. And so we need to be working on this, and our state's taking it very seriously. We're a little behind. About 37% of rural Americans don't have high-speed internet. 51% of rural Missourians don't have, and we need to close that gap and then eliminate the rest of the gap to where everybody has access to the kind of communication you need today to really be able to be part of a competitive economy.
Seems like in the modern era, every technological advantage has frankly benefited the cities and urban areas more, and kind of taken population away from rural America and rural Missouri. This might be the first real technological change that brings people back to rural Missouri, if that's where they want to live and the kind of lifestyle they want to live.
That's a good way to look at it. That is a good way to look at it. And obviously technology, particularly the communications technology, is easier to put in place where there are lots of people in side-by-side houses, and when there are people who are some distance from each other. You know, the utility pole, if you're hooking up to the utility pole and there are 10 houses between 5 utility poles instead of 50 utility poles between 2 houses, obviously it's easier to do that. But
that's how the co-ops exist. I mean, it was a nice time to reflect with Barry Hart, a legendary Missourian, retiring, and now Caleb Jones taking that mantle up. It was, I think a lot of folks took a second look, and it really is a way we brought power to the farms the first time. Now it's a way maybe to bring internet to the farm.
Well, you know, certainly as a competitor, they're in a great position to compete, and I've been one of the people advocating to be sure they were in a place to be one of the competitors that says we can do this and we can do this more effectively. We can be that first provider. We already go to the last mile. We already go to the last house. And so I do think you see a real role there developing for...
Give my chance to shout out for Ozark Border, my co-op back home. Let me ask you a question while you're here about President Trump. You know, he's a figure that certainly takes up not just the political sphere, but frankly culturally, and maybe he's a bigger part of people's lives than any president, not in a wartime, in history. What's it like working with him kind of behind the scenes?
Well, you know, I had a unique chance to start working with him because I was in charge of the inauguration when he was sworn in. I wasn't in charge of everything that his committee did, but I was in charge of everything that happened at the Capitol, the actual inauguration itself. And so Abby and I had a chance to spend some time with he and Mrs. Trump the couple of weeks before the inauguration. Fortunately, that day went well, and he felt good about it, so we got off to a good start. And the results of what the president wants to do, time and time again, prove to be the right thing. He just does it a little differently, maybe not as careful about how he explains what he's going to do, and doesn't always do it exactly the way he thinks he's going to do it. Somebody that had been in government longer might take longer to think about, okay, how am I going to explain this, rather than sort of, I'm just going to have a constant conversation with the American people, which you're exactly right. That's what he's had. He decides virtually every morning what the news and a whole lot of other people are going to talk about that day. But when you look at this economy, you know, in our state, 3.1% unemployment. We've had 9 straight months now of more jobs open than people looking for work. That has never happened before. The first month has never happened before in the history of the country. Now we're 9 straight months into that kind of vital, booming economy, talking to people who are in the workforce preparation business. One of the things that kept coming up the last couple of days with the Secretary of Labor was we got a lot of people at work who don't have all the skills they need to have to be at work. That would not have been the case in the last president's economy. You had a lot of people had a lot of skills who couldn't get a job. Now you have a lot of people who have a job who don't have all the skills they need. And what can you do to do workforce preparation with people who are already at work so that when the economy takes a turn the other way at some point, they have the skills they need to stay in the economy that they found an open door and a way into.
I found that he has a special relationship with folks in like Eastern Jackson County, Jefferson County, the Boot Heel, that most Republican presidents or politicians, period, have never really had from Washington. It's an interesting dialogue he does have with Missouri in particular.
Well, and I think in our state's one of the states where his numbers continue to go up. You know, the day he was elected president, his approval rating in Missouri was, I think it was 42%, but he won the state by 19 percentage points that day. By the election 2 years later, his approval rating in Missouri was 10% higher than it was on election day. And so I think that there is a sense that this guy is not a typical politician running for president, and Missourians like that.
We got you here. You're one of the few people in the history of the state that's ever been a Missourian representing folks here that has been in the leadership in both chambers, and how you're getting to change the Senate rules some. Can you give folks a quick look into what that's about?
Well, I think my friends on the other side, the Democrats, have really abused the rules to try to, one, use up floor time, which means we can't get to other legislative issues, and two, frankly, to make it hard for the president to really take control of the government that the American people have voted to put him in control in. I put a bill out of my committee a year ago to shorten the debate time. We didn't have the votes to do that. We're going to try it again to where instead of having this 30 hours of debate required, if anybody insists on it, and Democrats have insisted on it 128 times. If you do that times an intervening day times 30, you've got a lot of time used up to really, except for Supreme Court judges, circuit judges, and cabinet officials, down to about 2 hours of debate. When Ronald Reagan was president, the average time from the day somebody got out of the committee, where the questions are asked, the investigation goes on, they have to be voted out of committee, the average time from the time somebody got out of committee until they were voted on the Senate floor was 5 days. With President Trump, the average time, was 55 days. The four previous presidents, the majority leader had to actually go to the procedure of forcing a vote a total of 24 times, where you file a cloture motion, is what it's called. With President Trump in the first 2 years, and that was the first 2 years of all four of those terms, that would average of 6, I think. With President Trump, it's 128 times, not 6 times, 128 times. And we need to change that. We're going to try hard to change it. And you know, the Senate's always been a place where the minority was protected, so that the minority had a chance in our system to be heard. And the minority only loses those protections when they abuse them. And clearly, the Schumer-led minority has abused the protections of the minority in a way that made it hard for the president to put people in place to run the government the way he'd like to see it run, and hard for the Senate to get to anything else, because unlike the House, you know, we're in the personnel business as well, and who does these jobs, and by the way, who does the lifetime jobs on courts? 2 Supreme Court judges, 85 other federal judges already confirmed for life, but there are 135 vacancies still, and we have the opportunity and the obligation to fill those with, in my view, constitutional conservatives who will try to decide what the law says, not what they think the law should say.
Well, Senator Blunt, thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Hey, Scott, great to be with you.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. But first, I want to tell you about ShowMeMissouri.com. Go to Show Me Missouri with an AH, like it's supposed to be said. This week, we're in Texas County, the home county of Emmett Kelly, and actually the birthplace of Senator Blunt's former colleague, Claire McCaskill. We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel, including Joe Lakin, after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back this week in Missouri Politics, Opinion Maker Panel Time. Representative Proudie from St. Louis County, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Brittany Robbins, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You've got Tom, I guess, whipped into shape now. Been a couple months.
Yeah, he's working, making eggs and money.
Good deal. State Representative David Gregory from St. Louis, welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And Joe Lakin, the best hair of Missouri politics, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Representative, we had Senator Blunt on earlier. It's always interesting to watch him talk about policies. He actually is the guy that actually digs in and does things.
Yeah, absolutely. Senator Blunt, I think over the last month especially, you look at this conference committee, he was able to really show the skills that he's learned during his service in Washington right at the middle of these contentious debates. And I think at the end of the day, Missouri Republicans can be happy that he helped lay the groundwork for President Trump's top agenda item of the year.
David Gregory, you've actually go get votes. You have to actually do what he does, make policy, but actually the political end of it. He's won a lot of elections and probably the most respected Missourian in Washington.
Absolutely. Look, Senator Roy Blunt has really transcended from being a politician to a true statesman. And he's done that because of how much he's done for the state of Missouri. Let's take rural broadband for an example. 1 out of every 5 federal dollars spent by the federal government are spent right here in the state of Missouri for rural broadband. So that's all a big thanks to Senator Roy Blunt.
You know, he is a person, I think, and Claire McCaskill, I think history will be kind to her. As time goes by, even Republicans may not agree with her politics, but she did work hard. And he kind of fits, I think, that mold for a lot of Democrats.
Absolutely. He is a true leader and an adult in the room, and I think that'll be remembered. And that's important that we have that right now with so much uncertainty in Washington, D.C.
I've seen him in your neck of the woods today touring some workforce development facilities. He is a guy that gets around the state.
This is true. I would agree with him being the adult in the room, and also his broadband work is outstanding. I'll kind of stop there. I can't too much say that I appreciate or am in favor of him laying any groundwork for Trump's policy issues, of course. But other than that, I would agree. What I do know of Senator Blunt is that he is very, very stately. He's a good person otherwise.
You just mentioned Donald Trump, and I think that means a lot of folks' attention is starting to turn to 2020 and when he runs for re-election. Democrats are now running. A lot of Democrats are now running. Give me one you have your eye on.
Oh, goodness. Everybody 2020. None of them in particular, to be honest with you. I'm not necessarily impressed at this point with any of the candidates.
You and Joe Lakin might have that in common.
Here. It's a lot. It's a lot. Just a large spread of folks. All of them have their limitations, in my opinion, and leave a lot to be desired. I'm interested to see who else may throw their hat in the ring or may pull it out.
Brittany, you've watched a lot of elections go on. I don't think this was the case in Missouri until more recently. The top of the ticket, the national trends. We used to be a bellwether that would buck, and we used to be from Missouri. We would do our own thing. We don't anymore. The national trends affect our elections in huge ways. What's a Democrat that you think actually could help and maybe not be such a burden on the Democrats statewide in Missouri?
I think Senator Klobuchar, absolutely. She's definitely a Midwest, more centered candidate. She's been very honest about how she feels about some of these more progressive policies that are being pushed That being said, it is really early. There is a ton of time left on the clock and a lot that could still happen. The flip side of that, I think Bernie Sanders, if you look at all the fundraising numbers he's put up in the last week, is just what Republicans ordered for 2020, especially in Missouri. He will certainly help get Republican statewides reelected.
What about Joe Biden? I think Joe Biden would have made Missouri an extremely close state last year, or 2 years ago.
Sure, absolutely. He's also been proven to be a true leader. He's a great campaigner, but we've seen him fall short in the past.
Joe Lakin, if you look over at Democrats, I'm sure there's a lot of them that you're like, that would be great to try to take this person to, say, Portageville and try to make them and try to relate. None of them could be as bad as Hillary Clinton, I wouldn't assume, but Joe Biden seems to be the person that I think makes maybe Missouri competitive.
I don't actually agree. I mean, I think Democrats have lost Missouri. I think especially national Democrats in a race like this.
Do they have to lose it by 20 points, though?
No, but you lose by double digits, and I'm not sure it makes much difference. You're not going to make any inroads. And I think Democrats have to be very concerned that Bernie Sanders announces this week and raises $6 million online within 24 hours. It means he's going to have the infrastructure he needs. He's going to have staying power and the energy behind him in 2016 that I think a lot of people attributed to Hillary Clinton. And thought would be co-opted by other liberal candidates. I think they're going to have a socialist right at the top of the pack throughout the election, potentially as their nominee, and that's bad news.
Could you be that lucky, David Gregory?
I certainly hope so, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. Forget the Democrat candidates. None of it matters. I think President Donald Trump's going to win. I think he's going to win significantly, and I'm not too worried about it.
All right, prediction time. If you had to guess right now, who do they pick?
If I was to guess right now, I would guess they pick Kamala Harris.
Who do you think they pick?
I have no idea. I'm hoping for Bernie Sanders.
Who do they pick?
I agree on Senator Harris, for sure.
I sincerely hope it would be Senator Harris as well.
I think they'll pick Joe Biden. I think he'll do better than anybody thinks. Let's talk about something that I think most folks thought would do well. Joe Lakin, the governor, had a couple priorities coming into session. One was this fast-track program. He's talked workforce development. I find it odd. All the Republicans say they're for workforce development, but when it comes down to being for workforce development, there was a problem in the Senate, kind of got hung up. Was it just that this is too early in session to move that?
No, I don't think it's too early. Look, I think kudos to the Senate for bringing priorities to the floor to start working on them. I worked in the House for 6 or 7 years, and nothing annoyed us more than the Senate waiting to get to stuff until the end of session for the clock to be run out. So I think credit to them for bringing them to the floor. Look, the Senate's a different body. They're going to have their own opinions and their own fingerprints on legislation. That's normal, but I don't think there's anything to be concerned about.
This bill's moving in the House in fiscal review. Representative Kathy Swan's carrying it. Do you think that something moves through the House?
Oh, it's going to move through the House. It's going to move through the House pretty simply. I mean, you look at this bill. It's very good. It focuses on occupational shortages, right? We're going to take money and incentivize adults who would otherwise not be able to go to college or get additional training. We're going to incentivize them to fill holes, vocational holes in the state of Missouri that we would otherwise not be able to fill. So I think it's going to pass through the House, and I'll bet you it gets to the Senate here pretty soon.
This is something you know a lot about. You're very familiar with education. You're professional in it. The governor comes out and says he's for workforce development. That's not something that many people know the details of. Sure. This is the detail. What do you think?
I agree with Representative Gregory. It's great. I mean, he's a man of my own heart, especially when it comes to tying education into workforce development, which of course is my career. So that makes me happy. It makes me excited. I think it not only passed through the House and Senate, I think it'll do so overwhelmingly so.
Brittany, it is an interesting thing. You're seeing some slowdown. Is this just the thing? Nothing like this is going to move in one night, normal slowdown? Or is this something that Senate could say, this is not our priority, we're killing it?
I think this is the traditional ebb and flow of the legislative process, and they will work it out. It is an important issue and an issue that we all need to come together on. It's important for Missouri.
So the interesting part is the hang-up, there's a talk of a deal around education savings accounts. What is that, Representative?
Oh my, so it allows for individuals who want to perhaps pay into sending their children to private schools. Mm-hmm. It gives them a tax credit. In certain areas, it's a voucher segue. I'm not necessarily in support of it in the form that we heard it. And I want to say it was Representative Christopher Nelly's bill the first time we heard it, and the reason being, and he and I have spoken at length about that, is my concern is that it would only help the children who are already participating in private school programs or that are going to private school. I want to say it's some language in the bill that sort of grandfathers in students that take advantage of it through high school. And because there's a cap on it, I want to say it was $50 million when it was his bill. It went through the Senate. I think they reduced it to about $25 million. With such a cap on there, it doesn't really expand access like the bill is claiming or the program is claiming to want to do to expand access to children to participate or to go to private school, especially if it's paying or going to pay for students who are already going.
Joe Lakin, you're very familiar with this issue. What is the argument to make this happen?
That it's past time. I mean, you know, every spring in Missouri we pay our taxes, baseball starts, and the legislature fails to enact any meaningful education reform. I'm hopeful that this is the year. I know Senator Koenig has worked very hard on this, was able to get it out of the Senate last year. I think this is something that has broad support, but again, it comes down to legislating. It's threading the needle on the issue, and I think this year they'll be able to.
Representative, this comes down to get to do both. Do you think they do both?
I think they're going to get both done. Both are priorities, and like I said, the one good thing about some of the more conservative caucus members within the Senate negotiating is that they're going to likely negotiate ESA, I think, to get this workforce, this fast track through.
Interesting. Minute Lab, one of the biggest issues, maybe the most interesting thing in politics, is the potential merger of St. Louis City and County at a statewide vote. From what you've seen so far, what do you think?
No. And not just because it's my own personal opinion. Of course, I'm inundated with emails, sure. And I'm sure the Representative Gregory is as well, on municipalities' personal feelings about it. I don't think right now the talk is so much about the merger itself. I think the larger issue folks are having with it is the statewide vote portion.
Sure.
And I'm inclined to agree with them. Look, you let folks who pay taxes where they live make decisions on things that affect where they live.
You're in St. Louis, and what do you think happens?
I think discussing how we get there is a distraction from the larger issue, and the fact of the matter is things are not working. People are disenfranchised, institutions are underfunded, and we need a solution, and that's what we should be discussing.
Well, Joe Lakin, with a minute left, who won the week?
I'll give it to Senate leadership, Senator Schatz, Senator Rowden, bringing these priorities to the floor, letting the process work, and keeping everybody invested in the process.
David Gregory, who won the week?
Oh, I'm going to have to give it to Governor Mike Parson. Anybody who drives a tractor to work
awesome.
is going to win the week and perhaps the month.
Who won the week?
Moms Demand Action. They had a heck of a lobby day this week at the Capitol. A couple hundred people showed up. Never underestimate the power that you have of advocacy.
I would have never thought that possible not long ago. Who won the week?
Missouri's workforce, present and future. The House and Senate are abuzz with bipartisan support for workforce development legislation, and I think that that's good for Missouri.
I'm going to do a couple birthday shout-outs. Jo Manning's frequent guest of the show, birthday. She's recently moving into a different part of her career, but is, I think, maybe the most respected journalist in the state. Ron Gladney, Missouri legend, birthday. And I'm going to say the person that won the week. If you're a person that gets your paycheck and you think, I just didn't send enough money to Jefferson City, Robert Ross is not your friend. However, if you want that money to be spent well, Robert Ross says his Committee on Government Oversight had a heck of a week. I think he won the week. Hope you'll win the week next week by joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics. Senator Scott Simpson will be with us. See you then.
As always.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.